All right, hello everybody. Lesson 2. Hopefully you can all see the PowerPoint slide for tonight and what we will be covering. I'm really excited. This is really where we start to build things. So week 1 is super important, as you know. We dive into your why and what kind of business you're trying to create and who you want to serve, and all of that is essential. But this is when we really start to build something. So we're going to build some processes. We're going to start by talking about sort of first impressions, and then we're going to help you create just the start of a client's journey with you. Tonight is hard. I am going to ask for you to really dive into this concept of messy action. It is needed more now than just about ever, because what we're going to do tonight kind of requires like 2 different perspectives. You've got to have a vision for what you're creating. You need to hold on to that vision at all times. So you really need to see what you're creating from sort of this 30,000 foot view. And at the same time, you're really going to get into the nitty gritty details of actually creating that vision and sort of like just the nuances of technology and the processes and sort of that really blah kind of stuff, right? But like once you build it, you really don't have to come back to it all that often. It's built, you might make some tweaks to it and that sort of thing. But I need you to have both of those perspectives. It can be a little overwhelming starting tonight. We're going to do our best to help you step by step. We've got some handouts for you that I think will really help. And then, of course, make sure you're asking questions in the next couple of weeks as well. We are going to really focus on one-on-one coaching time for right now, okay? Down the road in the academy, we are going to cover corporate wellness. We're going to cover daily money management services. We are going to cover marketing and sort of group programming and like webinars and all of that stuff. We will get to it, I promise. But we're going to start with one-on-one coaching. And there is a reason for that. I actually believe that one-on-one coaching is the easiest to get started. You really only have to worry about the client right in front of you. It's easier to focus and determine what that person needs so that you can deliver value to that person in front of you. You don't have to worry about trying to understand what 20 people in a group program need from you and delivering on that. You really just have to take care and serve well the person right in front of you. And it is the best way, I believe, to build your confidence, right? Like you can help somebody right in front of you. It's easier to help them because you only have to worry about what they need. You can help them. You see results with them. They get results, and that boosts your confidence. Not only that, but the more one-on-one work you do, the more you'll look at it and be like, wow, I've seen it all now. Like there's not very much that I haven't seen. And that's when a group program becomes so much easier to deliver on. Because then you're like, it doesn't matter what all these 20 people have seen. Chances are I've seen it on a one-on-one basis before. And so I feel confident that I can deliver value to a group, okay? So that's why we're going to start with one-on-one coaching. The other reason we're going to start with one-on-one coaching is because it's a great way to test a lot of your processes. It's a great way to test your ideal client who you figured out last week, to try a few different things and explore and experiment. And there's really just one person being impacted by it. And so it's really easy to kind of tinker, okay, and get that feedback. So keep in mind, we are going to show you exactly how we do things. The goal is not that you copy everything we do entirely, okay? So for example, I'm going to be showing you that we do a 20-minute quick audit. You might want to set yours for 15. You might want to set it for 30 minutes. And we're going to talk about some of those variations, but really it's just, you're going to experiment at first, okay? For the longest time, my quick audit, which I'm going to walk you through what that means in just a second, was 15 minutes. It's what I did for years, and it's what I used to teach in the academy. When Jill came on board, she preferred a 20-minute quick audit. And so we just made the change for her, and that was it. It really wasn't a big deal to make that shift. It really depends on your style, and as you practice it, you'll practice the script with your super buddy. You'll have a couple under your belt, either with clients or prospects, and you'll be able to test whether or not 15 minutes is enough for you. Maybe you do need 30 or something like that. So just note, the idea is not that you duplicate everything just like we do. Also, when it comes to the creation of some of these systems tonight, we use a lot of technology now in our business, so a lot of automation. And yet I know that, like, I don't really want you bombarded with the technical pieces yet. Sometimes you can go down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out how to get a software to work, and you're missing the bigger picture. A lot of this stuff, for the longest time, I didn't have automation set up. I would just manually send an email. Now, there are some tricks there as far as like saving it as a Word document. That way, all you have to do is copy and paste it into an email. You don't have to recreate the email every time. But a lot of the times at first, I just manually did a lot of this stuff. And you will see, we're going to show you where our assistant plays a role. So you'll see the name Sherry. Sherry is our assistant. She does a lot for us. And the reason I did not remove her name from these tutorials is because at some point down the road, I want you to be able to come back to this lesson and say, I'm ready to hire a virtual assistant or an assistant, and this is where Kelsa's assistant played a role, so this is where I'm gonna have my assistant play a role. At first, and just like it was for me at first, it's super likely that you will be doing all of these steps yourself, and that's totally okay. Just know that because we say Sherry, it's because down the road, when you have a Sherry yourself, we want you to know where to put her, okay, or him. So first, before we dive into all of that good stuff, let's dive into first impressions first. I believe that there are some ways that you can create a really professional front and in a very inexpensive and simple way. And so we're going to cover those really quickly. The first one is email. Google Suites, and these are all in Thinkific laid out for you. So you guys don't need to be taking extensive notes right now. So if I go to the first impressions, if you click under tools, all this information is in there. So you don't need to necessarily write all this down. There's links provided and everything. But I, of course, have a little bit more information for you than what's in there too. So Google Suites, $6 a month. So what you're going to do is you're going to figure out your business name, which we talked about last week. You go and buy that domain. You have to do that step first. You can buy your domain from GoDaddy, Bluehost. We use SiteGround. I love SiteGround. There's so many. Like, I don't even know what all of them are. So, but by all means, like, if you already know of a site that has been recommended to you, just buy the domain. It's not that big of a deal. Okay. So once you do that for $6 a month, Google Suites is, to me, an amazing tool. What it allows you to do is essentially have a custom email address. So instead of having like coolfinancialcoach@gmail.com, you can have Kelsa@coolfinancialcoach.com, which I don't know if that domain is taken. If not, I think I should buy it because I think it's pretty cool. Coolfinancialcoach.com. I think it would be amazing. If you want that to be your business name, you should go check it out. I do not own it. It was just an example for this lesson, but I think it's kind of cool. So it can be Kelsa@ and then whatever your domain is, right? And it just helps to present a really professional front. And for $6 a month. It also gives you access to different features, more storage inside of Google Drive or Google Sheets, which is what you might be using to send things back and forth with your clients, or storing images or audio files, video recordings. You have different features in your calendar, all sorts of things, and it's for $6 a month. I think it is well worth it, okay? When you click on the link inside of Thinkific, I just want to show you guys something, because a lot of people, it defaults to business and it's $12 a month, but we just use this basic one over here, and so it's kind of on the left-hand side, but I highly recommend just using basic. We've been using that for years and it works just fine, and we're, a pretty big operation over here, and we're getting by just fine on the $6 a month, okay? So the basic is really all that you need. Next is your phone line. We're going to talk about this when we get to program design in 2 weeks, but I'm going to recommend that you don't give out your cell phone. I know that that's counterintuitive, and in this day and age, everybody has a cell phone and everybody gives out their cell phone, and it's just kind of the way of the world. The challenge is that down the road, if you ever want to pull back on that idea, if you don't want to give people your cell phone, it's a really hard thing to retrain people later that have already had your cell phone for years or months, and they've been accustomed to being able to use it, okay? it's easier to like give your cell phone to a few like favorite clients, or if you've got the one that you know could really use your help, or to like create a premium package offering later that like, hey, this level, if you pay this much, you get access to me through cell phone. That is a level of access that somebody should probably pay for, okay? So I don't recommend giving out your cell phone number, but I also understand that it's expensive and not necessary to like go and get a whole new landline, buy a new phone, get a new landline, all that. So Google Voice is something that you can use. It actually will operate right through your cell phone. You can sign up for a phone number. Oftentimes there are ones in your area code, not always though, so maybe choose one close by or within your state or something like that. I personally feel like with cell phones, long distance is really not that big of a deal anymore. So just something to consider. But you can have a separate, phone number right through there, and you can tell when someone's calling your phone that it's coming from your Google Voice number, so you know to answer it properly. Okay. You can also set up a voicemail, so you can have a very professional voicemail that goes off at different times. So you can have it, during office hours it says one thing, and then after office hours you can change it to like automatically do a different one, which I just think is really cool, all for free. Okay, so be sure to check out Google Voice, and the link for that is in there. It is free for personal use, $10 a month for business use. I'm going to let you decide which one you use it for, since I know you're using it for your business, but I don't really think you're going to be using it that much right away. So I know which one I would lean towards, but I'll let you kind of decide if you're going to go for free or pay the $10 a month. The third way to present a very professional first impression is in your email signature. So if you end up using Gmail or the Google Suites like we just talked about, you can add a professional signature to your email. There is a free service called Wise Stamp that you can use. One of the complaints we heard with Wise Stamp is that with Gmail, it actually, to other Gmail people, it actually flags it as spam. So what we have found is another tutorial. It's a YouTube link, and she walks you through how to set up a very professional email signature in your Gmail, just doing it yourself. And so here's a copy of what these look like. Here's my original Wise Stamp, which was free. And in order to have the free version, it just has down here, get your own email signature. So it's kind of like the ad, right? That never bothered me. If you want to pay for Wise Stamp, go right ahead. That never bothered me on there for the free one. And then she teaches you how to set it up on your own. And this is the one that I came up with. She does show you how to have like buttons for Facebook and Instagram and all of that. And when I created this, I was under a time crunch, and I just was like, good enough. And I never went back and added the little circles for Facebook and all of that, the social media icons. But just like these were on there, she does show you how to do that as well in that video. So you can see, I think it looks pretty good, right? I think it looks totally professional. You can change the colors, you can change what you have on there, all sorts of things. And it's just a YouTube tutorial, and it makes it look really professional, okay? I often see people have like a quote or, something that's like, excuse the typos, I might be responding from my phone or something like that. So if you want to have a quote in there, or if you want to have a little disclaimer, by all means, that's also something you could add to your email signature, and it looks really professional. So business cards, and I guess logo. So let's get to say logo first. I do think at some point down the road, you might want to consider like a full-on branding package from somebody, or like a designer of some sort. But at first, I just don't know how necessary it is. And if you have some extra cash flow, and if you want to invest in your business at this level now, by all means, like, go ahead. I wish I could show you, I don't have it anymore, my very first logo that I created like in PowerPoint or something. I don't even remember, it was so long ago, but it was hideous. It was so ugly. And then I went into Vistaprint and I made my own business cards, and those were ugly too. But guess what? I'm pretty successful and everything worked out fine. So it's not the end of the world, and chances are you're going to come up with something way better than I did anyway. So Fiverr is a really great option for somebody to create a logo for you for fairly inexpensive to maybe get you by. You can also look through Canva or through Pinterest and stuff like that just to gather some ideas. If you are creative at all using PowerPoint or Canva, you might be able to create a logo yourself For now, that will get you by for a little while. And then at some point down the road, you can totally upgrade that and make it look even better. But we're just going for first impressions right now. And just something is better than nothing, okay? And then business cards, there's tons of websites now. 12 years ago, there weren't so many. There was Vistaprint. I think it had 5 templates on Vistaprint like 12 years ago. And so Vistaprint, moo.com, moo.com, GotPrint, Uprinting, even your local Staples. So we personally love our local Staples. One of the best things about going to your local Staples, is you can actually touch your card, feel it, kind of get a feel for what it's gonna like be like in your hand. And I think that's helpful. You know, you can ask somebody right at the counter, like, what size font is this right here? One of the mistakes I made on my very first business card, and so this is what I'm going to recommend to you not to do, is I had a yellow business card with white font. Not super easy to read. P.S. In case you're not sure why I'm telling you that. Not super legible. Do not copy me, okay? So the idea is to make it so that the font is bigger than what you would expect. Because when you're on your computer screen, it might be really easy to read, but when it's printed, it's kind of hard. So make it a little bit bigger. And again, think about the colors. And when you go to a local place, you can kind of look at examples. You can ask them questions. You can point to something and say, what size font is this right here? So that when you go onto staples.com later and you're creating it, you know what size font to choose and that kind of thing. And again, they all have templates that you can use just to start right away, okay? Finally, last but not least, with first impressions, so Google Suites is one of the expenses I recommend a new financial coach take on pretty quickly. And then the second one is your scheduling software. I believe your scheduling software is going to be a game changer for you really early on, and so it is worth the expense, okay? Acuity is the one that we use, and so there's an Acuity tutorial in there. You're gonna see kind of behind the scenes on my account. And it allows you to get out of the scheduling administrative task, first of all, which is huge, okay? So instead of emailing back and forth constantly with a client, like, no, that doesn't work for me. What about this time? Oh, that doesn't work. Can you do 30 minutes later? No, I can't. And let's pick a different day. And like, you're just spending all this time. You can send a link and say, here's the link to my scheduler. Go ahead and pick the day and time that works for you. It is so much easier, and it puts the ownership and responsibility in the client's hand, which is huge, okay, to get scheduled with you. The other thing is with something like Acuity, and I know a lot of them do this now. Acuity will send the confirmation email, send the reminder email. In your confirmation email, you can have all of your prep work included, so you don't need to send a separate email. You can have your terms and conditions set up right inside of your scheduling software. So when they book their session with you, they are agreeing to your, terms and conditions. You can have it take payment for you. You can have a program and package set up in Acuity, which is really cool. So if you're going to give 12 sessions to somebody, they can actually book all of that right through Acuity, and it tracks it and everything for you. So your scheduling software is really, really important to the design and setup of your business early on. Acuity, I believe now is $15 a month, and please don't, count me on that because it changes. But I believe it's $15 a month right now. There is a free version, so if you just want to start with the free version, you can. But the $15 a month is super customizable, which I love. And when you see our behind the scenes of where we put things, we have the paid version. And so that is why if you're doing the free, it might be like, oh, I don't have that section. Where's she seeing that at? And it might be because of that, okay? So again, I believe that those two expenses are pretty good right away. And then things like printing business cards is sort of a one-time expense, and you might not need more for a year or something like that, depending on how many you buy, and they're not that expensive anyway, okay? Another idea is once you get some of this stuff set up and you're looking for a beta client, consider a beta client that is a graphic designer and might want to do this on trade, okay? So if you're looking for someone to design a logo or a business card for you, I think sort of partnering with a graphic designer could be really key early on, okay? So just last idea there. Some of the biggest contenders that I hear from other coaches on scheduling software. So again, we use Acuity, Acuity. There's a link to that inside the system. But Calendly, and Dubsado, Dubsado, I have never used either of those. I've just heard good things. I don't know the price comparison. I don't know like what their features include that like Acuity doesn't include. I'm not sure. But it might be worth just doing a comparison on your end of what you might want. Okay. I personally love Acuity. I rave about them. I think they're amazing. So, and Acuity has features now that it didn't have even a year ago. So their customer service is amazing. They're always making improvements. Their communication is top notch. Like there's just so many things about them from a business standpoint that I really appreciate. So, and their software works, right? It doesn't glitch out. It doesn't do weird things that I can't figure out. Like it's just amazing. So tonight, what I want you guys to think about is what we are going to work on putting in place for your business are what I call the velvet ropes of your business. So it's sort of like when you're going to an event or if there's a restaurant or something like that, you see the velvet ropes and you're like, ooh, how do we get past those? That's what I want you to create in your business. I want clients or prospects to be like, ooh, how can I work with him? Like, what do I need to do to get to that stage, right? Because they can see a velvet rope in place. So each one is meant to ensure that only the best and the right kind of clients get past the velvet rope. It's a qualification step, okay? You are qualifying their readiness level, their commitment level, that their problem matches what you offer in way of solutions, that your personalities match up and all sorts of things, okay? So that's what we're creating today. The first thing I wanna do is give you an idea of what a client journey looks like. Sort of the 30,000 foot level, okay? So the overview of what we're trying to create over the coming 14 weeks now, okay? So let me find that. I've got a bunch of stuff open here on my end. Yes. So we're going to get super detailed on this during the academy. You're going to build each of these steps out. But I know that from a vision standpoint, you probably want to know what it is that you're exactly creating, right? We are going to tackle each of these steps from two different perspectives. What you experience as the coach, but also what your client will experience as part of this journey, okay? The client journey is key. So your goal as the coach and business owner is to lead the client through the process. You are the expert, you are the leader, and you are going to guide them through it. So often when people are struggling financially or just with money in general, even if they're not in crisis mode, there's shame around that or humiliation, guilt around it. There's a lot of baggage and they're coming to you feeling really insecure and uncertain. I believe the worst thing that we could do as coaches is not lead them through something confidently. And all that will do if we don't do it confidently is sort of encourage more insecurity in them. They're not going to feel supported. They're going to wonder what the heck you're doing. They're going to wonder like, am I really okay in their hands, right? So your job is to lead them very confidently through this client journey so that they feel supported, like you know what you're doing, okay? Because you do, right? And one tip, just so you know, and I'll reiterate this later too, is we only ever guide one step out. So what's about to happen for all of you on this call is you're about to see all of the steps and it's going to be super overwhelming and you're going to be like, oh my God, what is happening right now? Imagine your client feeling that way if you were to try and explain to them your entire process. That is not what you do. You do not want to overwhelm them. What we do for a client is we say, here's where you're at. Here's what's next for you to work with me. That's it, just the next step. And if somebody says, but what happens after that? We will talk about that when that time comes, right? There's no benefit in understanding the entire process from a client perspective. They will just be overwhelmed. And the only benefit for you guys now is that I want you to be able to see what we're creating overall, okay? So we're gonna help you build each step in your client's journey. Let me just read my notes really fast. Trust the process these next 4 weeks as we build each of these out. It's very normal to feel overwhelmed in this lesson and also the next lesson. We know that you will add value and improve your programs for the rest of your career. I still am improving my programs today. This month, I will likely create something and add it to my program, okay? So, and that's after a decade, over a decade of doing it. So if you go into it with this idea that what you're creating is going to be final and like done and complete, you will never ever get there. Okay, that's not like a realistic expectation. Okay, you will continue to grow this and add value for your clients' benefit over the coming decade. Okay, which is a really beautiful thing if you think about it. You will be growing and your clients will be growing as a result. Also remember that we are here to help you if you get stuck. Okay, so let's dive into this handout right here. I'm just going to go over it really quickly in the center column first. The first step that we have is what we call the quick audit, and that's an individual with their coach. It's a 20-minute call. We're going to be designing that tonight with you, okay? So the quick audit. From there, that is how we qualify an individual and how they qualify us. It is truly an audition of both of us, both the coach and the client. We audition one another to make sure it's a good fit. Okay, and I'm going to show you the script for that and everything. If they pass that velvet rope, they move on to the next step, which is their discovery session. A discovery session at Fiscal Fitness is called the Eureka session. You're going to call it something different, but overall, the term is the discovery session. We just call it the Eureka session because the idea is that we want them to shout Eureka at the end. Okay, it's just kind of a play on words for us. It's a 2-hour-long session between the client and the coach. Yours could be 90 minutes. It could be 2.5 hours, something like that. But it's a deep dive into whatever problem it is that they're hoping that you solve, okay? From there, we are going to talk about the next steps with us. So this is a one-time session. And from there, we say, let's schedule a next steps consultation. And that's another 20-minute call where we discuss, based on everything we just discussed in your discovery session, here's how we can continue to help you through long-term coaching, okay? So here's everything we just dove into. You know your solutions. If you need help with those solutions, here's how we can help you long-term, okay? So that is a consultation. And then they go into a long-term coaching program. We're gonna dive into what that all looks like down the road, actually in 2 weeks. Once they're done with the long-term coaching program, our clients start to wean off that coaching program. So instead of meeting with us weekly or bi-weekly or once a month, as they slowly transition, they then go to every other month, and then they go to quarterly, and then where they end is semi-annual, okay? So, and we're gonna help you design all of this. Along in here is an optional group program. So we're going to teach you where that could possibly fit into this business design, this business model. Completely optional. You do not need to have a group program. Some people are like, I can't wait to do a group program. And other people are like, oh my God, the idea of a group program terrifies me. Okay. So it's totally optional. We're going to teach you what our group programs have looked like over the years and where they fit in to our business model so that you can duplicate that if you want. Okay. Now at this point, we've got a couple of other handouts to kind of dive into this in more depth. At this stage up here, before they've done their quick audit, they're a prospect. So during that time, we're nurturing them. They're probably on our newsletter. We email them. We make phone calls and say, hey, you know, would you like to schedule time to talk with your coach? That kind of thing, and how we could help you. So this is just a nurturing drip campaign. When Michael teaches marketing, he'll teach some of these aspects as well, okay? After they've done their quick audit and they schedule their discovery session, so in the middle here, there's some things that we send them, and we're gonna dive into this later. Oh, Sherry welcomes them, because at this point, they have now paid us to be their coach. And so Sherry, we do a welcome call. We say, welcome to the Fiscal Fitness family. We are so excited for your upcoming session. It's normal to be nervous. We're here to help you. Did you get your prep work? Do you have any questions about your prep work? If you do, please let us know, that kind of thing. Okay, so again, we're nurturing them some more. After their discovery session, we deliver a ton of value in the discovery session. We have some post, Eureka emails that we send that are all automatic. And again, you can manually send these emails for a little while if you want to, okay? Once we do the next steps consult, and if they decided to move on to a long-term coaching package, we have, a series of emails that we send them, which we will cover in a couple of weeks, okay? Tonight, what we are going to help you design are the first 2 steps of this process. So we're going to talk through the concept of the quick audit, the design of it, the purpose of it, and give you a script for it and have you practice it and have you set it all up in your scheduling software, okay? And we're going to help you begin to outline your discovery session. So your 90-minute or 2-hour session deep dive with a client that you are going to be getting paid for, okay? Let's see, let me get back to my notes here. I have so many tabs open, I'm so sorry. So it's a little bit about what the client journey from an overview standpoint looks like. I'm going to take a drink here of this tea just a second. For those of you who joined late, I hope you like my sultry voice tonight. I still don't have my voice from FinCon last week. Still is not fully back. So I apologize for needing a quick break there. Okay. So please learn from my mistakes. What is this all about, right? One of the things that I promised I would do in the Academy always is share with you the things that we've done well and that worked and that were successes and that we are really proud of, and not shy away from sharing some of the failures with you and some of the mistakes we've made or some of the things that totally didn't work and were flops. And because the Academy changes so often as we make changes in our business, there are current failures, like really recent ones that we've made that will actually be coming down the road that we've added to this round of the Academy. Things that we tried and they didn't work. So one of those things I'm going to share with you in this module. So you may have noticed that I don't do free consultations. I do a 20-minute quick audit call, which you are going to see the design of that very quickly here. The only way that a person can receive my coaching is if they've paid for it. And coaching from Fiscal Fitness for their Eureka session, which is 2 hours long, is $497 at this time right now. Or for business owners, it's a little bit longer and $597. So it's not inexpensive. It's pretty expensive, right? And I know a lot of coaches and a lot of people have said, well, why don't you do free consultations? And I want you to know that for a long time I did. And it is, till this day, one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made in my business. I often will have a client in the Academy, which I think is pretty cool. So a client who works with me for years, they want my sort of guidance around their own money. They make such growth and changes financially that they decide they want to be a financial coach themselves and share that, training with other people. And I think that's really cool. And yet I also have to admit in front of them at some point, I almost quit. I almost quit being a financial coach. I almost closed up shop and thought, I can't possibly do this. I hate this. I'm burnt out. I'm working harder than anybody else. I care more than the client cares. And one of those reasons, there's 2, I'll share the other one later, but one of those was when I did free consultations. And I want to explain to you why I truly, truly recommend that you do not fall for this idea that in order for someone to trust you, in order for someone to believe that you can actually help them, you must deliver value for free first. I disagree completely. I believe that we prove on a regular basis through Fiscal Fitness that you do not need to give away anything for free in order to actually have a successful business and actually have people hire you and want to work with you, okay? When I was doing free consultations, something happened. The type of person that I met with showed up differently. if they showed up at all. So the first thing that would happen is I would get a lot of no-shows, which was super frustrating, okay? But they didn't pay for the session. Why do they care, right? No sweat off their back if all of a sudden something more important came along that day. I would ask them to complete prep work, and more times than not, they would not complete the prep work. So they would come to the meeting wanting solutions without giving me any information from which to deliver a solution on, okay? A great example of that is somebody who would want to know how to get out of debt, and I would ask them to come with a breakdown of all their debts, and I would be very specific. The type of debt it is, the balance, the interest rate, and the payment amount. Please bring me that information. They would show up and not have that information because they didn't have time to get it, or they didn't know where to gather it, but they didn't bother to call. And yet they would still come and want me to be able to tell them how to get out of debt, right? And it felt impossible. They would come and this was when I had an office and I would meet people in person, and they would slouch in their chair. They would kind of like just lean back away from the table. They were not engaged in the process at all. And it was like physically obvious. Like their nonverbals were just like, whatever. And here's why. When you do a free consultation, people have learned that there is nothing for free. So there's going to be a sales pitch there. You're going to get a little bit of value, and then they're going to want to sell you into something, right? So people would come expecting a sales pitch, and so they would either not come at all, or they would come with a wall up completely, okay? And when I stopped doing free consultations and I started charging for the very first session, the caliber of client that I attracted dramatically improved. And when I say the caliber of a client, I'm not referring to social status, wealth, or even the ability to pay for the session, because before that, the client would have had the ability to pay for it, okay? What I'm talking about is their readiness level, their willingness to commit effort into making changes and to receive accurate and customized coaching, okay? Because when they paid for it, they were like, well, I paid for this. I better get something out of it, and I better do my part so I can ensure that I do, right? And as soon as I started charging for it, I showed up differently. I wanted to make sure I delivered so much value that it was worth it for them. And we have such positive reviews on our Eureka session. That is a paid for session that even if they don't continue coaching with us long term, they tell everybody about it. They're like, I did this session. It was great. I got specific strategies. I know what I got to do. I know my goals. I know the steps I got to take to achieve my goals. It was amazing, right? And even if they can do it on their own, isn't that a beautiful thing that we just delivered? And I got paid to deliver that advice, right? Which makes me happy, right? So you will be tempted. I promise you, you will be so tempted to offer free consultations. And I'm going to ask you to come back to this lesson, come back to this video, and listen to me yell at you and lecture you about not doing free consultations, okay? Because I promise you, you will reach burnout. You will feel as if you are caring more than they are caring, and you will end up delivering a lot of general advice and a lot of rules of thumb and a lot of like not specific sort of coaching because you don't know it enough yet to actually coach them well in that session. Okay, so I promise you what we're going to have you build is better. It takes more work on the front end to build it, and yet it is worth it. Okay, so I have your buy-in on that. I hope I do. So as you are building your this process that we're helping you design, one recommendation I have is to create sort of an onboarding checklist, okay? You can do this on a Post-it note. You can do it on a notepad. You can do it in Excel, whatever you want to do, okay? And we don't have one because it would look so different amongst all of you, okay? Depending on which software you choose and that kind of thing. All I want you to have is like a list of what needs to happen so that as a client comes through it, and when you're first learning it and you don't have it all memorized, like I have this memorized, I could tell you like in my sleep what our process is, and even where a client is at in the process, to be honest. I don't need to go to like a checklist to look at it. But at first, you will absolutely not be able to keep a lot of this straight, okay? So my recommendation is this. I like Excel. I'm kind of an Excel nerd, so I'm going to use an example in Excel. You have a column on the left-hand side, and it breaks down every single step. Client schedules. Did they get the welcome email, which should be automatic, but it's just something to like verify that they received it. Did I call them to say hello and make sure they received the prep work? You know, all these steps. And then at the top, you're going to have the person's name. And down that column underneath their name, you're just going to check it off as they do it. Okay, as you confirm. And then the next column is the next client's name. The next client is the next column is the next client's name. And that's what you're going to build. And that's what you're going to use while you're keeping everything straight at first. Okay. And it's just easier, I think, to do it a bit manually when you're first starting. And then you can kind of take, you know, bits of it and say, okay, all of these emails, how can I automate this process? And we're going to later, weeks down the road, we're going to show you the software and the technology components that we use. But they're expensive and they're a lot of work to set up. There's a huge learning curve. And I don't want that to stifle you now from building out the process, which can be done manually really easily. Okay. It's just, it ends up overcomplicating what's already kind of a complicated journey. Okay. When you're first building it. So the client onboarding process, I just want to make sure you're very clear, is that it serves a purpose. So it keeps everything heading in the right direction, which is your job as leading the client to keep them moving in the right direction. I think one of the worst things that could happen is that a client says, yes, I'm ready to schedule. They go online and schedule, and then things completely stall out because you're not sure what to have them do next. Okay. People work really hard to prospect someone, and then suddenly they sort of like lose all this gusto once the person says yes, and that's not what I want for you. There was actually a conversation in Financial Coaches Unite yesterday that touched on this perfectly. She shared quite honestly that like as soon as someone says yes, she gets totally stuck and she doesn't know what to do. And so we really worked through that. There were a lot of comments on it. I highly recommend you guys go take a look at it. It was a very honest conversation from somebody, and I really appreciate her being open to share. And I've seen it happen before, and I don't want that to happen for any of you. So if you don't lead the client through the process confidently, they will begin to question their choice of hiring you. They'll wonder if you can lead them through really big changes and transformation if you can't lead them through your own business flow. Okay, so by having a clear process in place that you lead the client through, you build trust and credibility. The client can actually feel more confident in their choice to work with you as opposed to less confident. Commitment goes both ways. So by taking the lead and showing them a process that requires work and attention, you're actually setting a tone that this is the energy level that's expected from them too. Like, we're going to put an effort towards you. You're going to see me do some work on your behalf even before your discovery session. And so I expect that same level of commitment from the client. And it's easier for them to show up in that way when they're on the receiving end of it too. So you're leading by example. That better is the name of the game, not easier. Okay. Let's see. So the quick audit. Here we go. We're going to dive into this. And I laugh at this picture because I know Michael put this Audi in here. I think there's like either Family Guy or King of the Hill or something. There's some joke about an Audi and it's an audit or something. He's getting audited and he thinks he's getting an Audi in the mail. But anyway, and I know Michael put this in here to make me laugh. So let's dive into the quick audit. When you're first starting out, we are so excited that sometimes we don't realize that our number one job is to qualify a client, to make sure that we can help them and that they're a good fit for us and that we want to work with them. Like, we're so just sort of like excited and maybe desperate to be like, oh my God, I just want to help anybody. And this person wants my help. Yes. Okay. I'll take you. And I think what could easily happen, and I've done it, so I know this happens, is you work with somebody that you're like, just don't see eye to eye with, or their problem is not really something you're feeling skilled to help with. And then it plants these, doubts in your mind of like, am I really cut out for this? Oh God, are they going to go talk about me bad behind my back? Like, it starts to just really creep in. So much of what we're building tonight is about qualifying the client. So making sure they're committed, making sure they're willing to put in some work, and making sure that they're not expecting an easy way out. So one way to think about the conversations from the moment you're talking with a client is If you are convincing them that they need you, you're doing it wrong. If you're simply sharing with them your process and leading them through their options, you're doing it right. So if you find yourself trying to sell them on the idea that they should care about the process, that's incorrect. If they care about the process and you're saying, here's how I can help you, here's how you can schedule with me, that is simply sharing a process, okay? It's not salesy. It's simply letting them know how they can best receive guidance from you, okay? One thing I want you to do really early on is adopt this philosophy of becoming unapologetic that financial change takes effort and it takes hard work, and that hard work and effort begins right away. I believe that sometimes we try to sugarcoat things, we try to make it easy, we try to do too much work for the client, and it's our way of like, we want them to like us, we want to like win them over somehow. And then later down the road, when something is hard, it's harder to get them to just switch gears when we've taken care of them and we've held their hands so much and not expected much of them. And now there's something that, you know, there's a big expectation from them, and it's a really hard transition for them to make, okay? I purposely believe that financial change is not easy. It takes a lot of work. It is a lifelong endeavor, that there are no quick fixes usually. And the people I work with and who want to work with me don't shy away from hard work, okay? They don't shy away from like just wanting the easiest out. They are like, no, tell me the best way to do it. And even if it takes a little bit more effort, like that's what I'm all about. And I want you to work with those kinds of people too, okay? So the purpose of the quick audit is to qualify the prospect. It actually stands for quick audition. And audition means you are auditioning the client, and not that you are necessarily on audition. You're not solving any of their problems on this call. You are not offering any advice or guidance. Chances are you don't even know enough at this point to do so. If you don't know any of a person's numbers, if you don't know any of the inner workings of their behavior, or like the, you know, what they're bringing to the table from years ago with money and, you know, their history and all of that, if you don't know any of that, I ask you to be humble enough to realize that any advice you give them at this stage is canned advice anyway, and that's not worth paying for. They can go read a blog article if they want, right? If you're in the business of financial coaching, you are in the business of giving advice to that client that is right for them, okay? Regardless of if it's right for somebody else. It's meant to be very specific, customized. That's where the value of coaching comes in. It's customized and it's for, you know, it's unique. The quick audit is not meant to solve any of their challenges, but to let them know that you can, that you are the right person for the job, okay? So I am going to show you some yes, okay. I'm going to show you the overview first, and then we're going to dive into a script. Okay. The first thing with a quick audit is you're going to lead the conversation. You're going to take the lead on the conversation right away, okay? So you want to build rapport and set expectations, and sometimes those two steps can actually be combined into one, which I'll show you in just a second, okay? So you want to build rapport really quickly. You want to set some expectations. We have a 20-minute call. Is now still a good time for you, right? Something along those lines. The next thing we're going to do is get them talking about their money, but in a very specific way. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, but if you ever ask somebody like, so tell me about your money, they will talk forever. They will tell you what happened to them when they were 4 years old and what they observed. They will tell you about when they were 16 and they got their first car. They will tell you about their, you know, first job right out of college, like every debt they've ever had. And this is a 20-minute call, right? So we're going to ask a very specific question to figure out, why did you reach out to me? Why did you schedule this session? And I'll walk you through the exact script in just a second. And then you want to figure out, why now? This probably isn't a new problem. So why did you decide that now is the time you want to solve this problem? Okay. So what you're doing here with number 4 is assessing their urgency. If a client during this portion is like, I don't know, like it's not super urgent. I guess I don't really care if I ever solve it. I just thought I would like call and see if you could help me with it. Chances are that's a disqualifier for me. Okay. It's hard to get somebody who's not really interested in solving the problem quickly to invest money in coaching, right? They're just not ready yet. Okay. Like something has to happen sometimes in order to get people to feel the pressure of like changing something. Okay. So we're going to ask them questions around that. And then we're going to let them know that, yes, this is a problem I can help with if it is. I don't want you to lie, but this is really where you just say, this definitely sounds like an area that I've seen before. I've had a number of clients who have experienced this, and I can certainly help you work through this challenge. Okay. It is really good for them to hear that. The purpose of the quick audit is they just want to know, can you help them, right? So many people come to a call with this idea in the back of their mind of, I bet she can't help me. I'm too far gone. I bet you there's no help for me. Like there's no way I'll ever get out of this. They have these true fears. And so even just saying, yes, I've seen this before, and I definitely think this is something I can help you with. We can help you get over this. Like they will immediately feel relieved. Okay. You're going to let them know how that is. Like how can they get help from you? So notice I'm letting them know I can help them. I'm not helping them in that moment. Okay. I'm not giving them any solutions or strategies. I'm just saying, I know what they are. And here's how you can schedule time for me to dive into that with you. Okay. So that's the offer. And then we're going to onboard them. Sometimes onboarding happens on the call, and other times it's something they're going to like, I got to talk to my spouse, or there's some like objections that might come up, or they're driving and they just can't schedule right things. They can't look at their calendar, and that is okay. Never ask somebody to pull up their calendar while they're driving, please. There is nothing, about our business that is so urgent that it's worth risking the life of one of our clients. Okay. So you can ask them, like, do you mind if I call you back tomorrow? Is that better for you? Should I call you in a half an hour? When will you get to your location? Should Sherry call you in a week? Like, you can set next steps during onboarding, but sometimes it doesn't always happen on the call. Okay. So we're going to go over the script now. And Super Buddies, you're going to practice the script together, which is really cool. So I'm going to do it just by myself, and then we're going to fill in some of the gaps as I go. Hi, Tanya. It's Kelsa with Fiscal Fitness. Thank you so much for setting aside these 20 minutes so I can make sure I can help you. I'm so curious. How did you hear about me? This is a great example of how steps 1 and 2 are actually combined. I'm building rapport and I'm setting a tone or for expectations at the exact same time. I highly recommend always stating the time frame for a call like this right away, because it's only 20 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever you decide to do, which is short. And you want to make sure they know that right away. If any of you on this in the Academy did a Q&A session with me for the Academy, it is likely that I followed a very similar script and you didn't even realize it, okay? It is likely that when I got on the phone with you, I said, we were scheduled for 3 o'clock today for 20 minutes. Is now still a good time for you to take this call with me? Right? And all I'm doing is in a very friendly tone, setting a clear expectation that we've got 20 minutes, right? Another way you can do this is in the Q&A on the Academy, I'll usually ask a question like, tell me where you're at in your journey of financial coaching. Have you helped anybody yet? And what I'm doing is I'm building rapport, okay? I'm just kind of checking with where you're at already on your journey. With a client, it's sometimes like, how did you hear about me? And if they know the person, oh Lord, if they're like, oh, my Aunt Rita works with your mom or whatever, do not say, so how's your Aunt Rita? You will go down the rabbit hole and you'll get the life update on somebody. Usually what I say is something like, oh my God, yes, I love Rita. Please tell her I said hi, right? Or I'll be sure to say thank you for to her for, putting us in touch with one another. I'm so glad she did that, right? So I try to make a statement and not necessarily a question. So just one little tip there. Give me an idea of what problems you're experiencing with your money that you're hoping to solve. So I'm going to show you where we're at right now on this. We're getting to the pain point. Notice I'm not saying like, so tell me what's going on with your money, right? I am saying, give me an idea of the specific challenge you're having right now with your money that you're hoping to solve. So we're focusing on money today, right? And we're focusing on the fact that they hopefully want to solve it. So we're not asking for a, Debbie Downer conversation, negative Nelly, all of that, where we're just going to complain for 20 minutes. This is like, give me an idea of what problem you're experiencing and that you're hoping to solve. Okay, very specific question there. And again, you can totally have a play on words here. So if you want to change problems to challenges and insert right now or, chief issues, something like that, by all means, please do that, okay? Depending on what they say, I will usually validate their concern, okay? And this is really, you want to know that they've been heard, okay? Those are definitely things I can help with. If they are, please do not lie. This is a script. It's not meant to create liars, okay? The idea is like, if you can't help somebody, and there are times where we can't, I'll say, you know what? That is not my area of expertise, but I know somebody who can help you. And I'm glad that we were able to clarify that before you book time with me, right? Like I would not want someone to pay me if I can't help them solve their problem. So let's assume it's something you can help with. And oftentimes it's like, I don't know where my money's going. We make good money. We fight all the time. I'm in debt. I don't know if I should pay it off or not. I have money in savings, but I just don't know if I should. I'm in over my head. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never learned how to do this stuff. Like, I feel like whatever you assume you're going to hear, you probably will hear. Like, those are the most common things. And so I usually say, like, those are definitely things I can help with. I've noticed it can be caused by a number of different factors. So we'll want to dig into what might be happening specifically for you so that we can truly solve the problem. Now, did something happen just recently that sparked the need to solve this, or has it simply been building over time? Notice what I just did was I had the pain point, kind of told them I could help, but then I went and I asked, why now, right? So these pieces are like a puzzle. You might need to move them around the board a little bit, but the idea is, you want to try and touch on all of them during the session. It is conversation. So conversations flow naturally. They're not always going to go exactly as scripted, which is why sometimes the pieces move around a little bit. Notice I am not solving her problem though. Notice I'm simply saying, I can help you solve that. And I'm trying to see if there's an urgency for them by asking, why now? What's caused this? And again, you're going to hear a number of things of like, it's just been building over time and I'm just so fed up with it. I can't take it anymore. Or, last week we got a bill and I just decided it was the last straw, that I can't feel this way anymore, or something like that. Right. And those, it's good. It's not good that they're feeling that way, but it's good because they want change because of that. Right. Like they're done feeling that way and you want to hear that commitment from them. And then I usually say something like, I'll usually say like, I can understand that. I'm so sorry to hear that. Again, just you're hearing them. You want them to know that you are listening. Okay. At this point, I'm going to recommend our Eureka session. It's 2 hours one-on-one with me. I'm going to have you complete some prep work first. That way I can gather all the information I need to make sure we're giving you the right solutions. It is a lot of prep work. Again, I do not shy away from saying this at all. I say there's going to be a lot of work, but it's this work that makes it so we can make the most of our 2 hours together. You're going to walk away with specific strategies to help you overcome this specific challenge. And we'll probably even have time to dive into some bigger picture things such as money goals, some priorities for you, and some next steps with your money. My job in that session is to paint a very clear picture for you of where you're at, where you're heading, and what it is that's going to take to get there. tell me what you think of of this so far, right? Or at that point, I kind of ask for some feedback from them, because I don't want to keep talking. I don't want to like just diarrhea of the mouth. I want to give them just a few specific points of that session. It's 2 hours with me. It's called the Eureka session. This is what you're going to get out of it. Notice I have not set the price yet. Okay. So the main point of this section is to clearly articulate, yes, I can help you. Then this is how I'm going to help you, is through the Eureka session. It's going to help give us the time and the process to solve the problem, okay? I will try to use their words, so this is a script, but I will try and use their words during this portion. So instead of saying, you know, you'll walk away with strategies for overcoming that challenge, I'll say, I'm going to give you specific steps with your debt of exactly how to tackle your debt. So in which order should you be paying it off, and by what time frame will you have it paid off by? If they have debt, I'll actually tell them that, okay? So in this example, obviously I don't know what the person's problem is, so I can't give them very specific takeaways. But if they're saying like, I have no idea where my money is going, I'll say, I will give you a clear spending plan. You will feel super excited about it because we'll create it together. You'll know exactly where your money is going and how to spend according to that plan once we're done with the session, right? And you'll see how that spending plan supports your long-term goals, okay? So again, very specific to what their challenge is. The other thing about this spot, and the reason I haven't set the price yet, and I say, tell me what you think about this idea so far. Tell me how the Eureka session sounds to you, right? Is if I have not clarified the value of the session, price doesn't matter yet. If they're like, oh, I don't know, that doesn't sound like anything I'd want, it doesn't matter if it's for free. It doesn't matter if I'm charging $5. It does not matter what the price is. If I have not like solidified, this is why this will help you, then the price doesn't matter. Oftentimes what will happen is they'll say, so like my student loans, will you be able to help me with those? And I'll say, yes, absolutely. We will be able to dive into the student loans because you're going to give me a breakdown of everything I need with your student loans before the session. So again, I'm reiterating, yes, I can help you, but I'm also pointing back to like, you've got some work you're going to have to do for me first though, right? And it really helps them to realize like, I can't possibly help them on this call. I don't know enough yet, right? So I'm like, yes, I'm going to get all of your student loan balances and interest rates from you beforehand. So when we do our session together, I'm really going to be able to tell you exactly how to tackle those, right? It's just helping them to feel more confident of like, wow, like this is all for me. Like this is super specific. Like I'm going to get some real value out of this. Sometimes a person will say, well, I don't know, how much is that going to cost, right? Or, yeah, that sounds great, but I don't know if I can afford that. And I'll say, well, we can certainly talk about that. If it sounds like something that interests you, do you feel like it's something that is would be valuable to you? You really want to make sure you're getting that, firming up the value first, okay? And then you say the cost of the session is $495 or $250 or $100, whatever you're going to charge, okay, which we're going to talk about pricing a little bit. I do take payment at time of scheduling. We typically recommend that you schedule a couple of weeks out because of the prep work involved and the amount of work we're going to need back from you ahead of time. And, oftentimes people will schedule the session on payday because that's when they usually have the money. And then it's usually a couple of weeks after that. How does the Eureka session sound to you? Listen and answer any questions that they have. Oftentimes at this stage, it's logistical. It's, well, how do I do the session? And, well, what are your hours? And how do I get the prep work? It's like you can tell they're working through the processing everything you just shared with them. Okay, so you're just going to listen and answer any questions that they have. Often I'll say something like, great, I am super excited to dive into this with you. I can get you scheduled right now while we're on the phone together, or, we do have an online scheduler, so I can send you an email with that information so that you can, look at your calendar and book right away. Which one is easier for you? And now, if you've done sales training in the past, salespeople will tell you sometimes that like you get them to sign the contract and book right then and there. I have never had that approach in my business, and it has worked really well for me. I consider my job to serve them really well. And if I can sense that they're hesitating out of fear, like they have the money, but they're saying they don't have the money, or they really don't have a reason for scheduling, I will show up and coach them through that moment. And I'll say, I'm sensing some hesitation. Tell me, what your concerns are right now. Like, I just welcome it. Like, I just say, talk to me, I come back to what I said first, you guys, which is, if you are trying to convince them that they need you, if you are trying to pressure them into needing your guidance, it's going to feel yucky. And chances are they're going to end up regretting it. And it doesn't always go as well. I believe that our job as coaches is to coach them in that moment, let them believe and trust really early on that they can trust us, that, you can tell me why you're hesitating. You can tell me why this makes you nervous. And sometimes a person's like, I don't know, like I paid somebody before and it didn't work. And I'll say, tell me what that was like for you. Tell me what that relationship was like. And I can say, you know what? Yeah, based on what you're describing, like that's not my personality and that's not how this is going to go down, right? Or now that I know that, I can be sure to coach you in a different way. Or I know that maybe negative reinforcement doesn't work for you and maybe that was that person's style. And so, thank you for sharing that with me. And I will make sure that when we meet, that I don't deliver this guidance to you in a way that, rubs you the wrong way or something like that. So at that point, there are sometimes some objections that come up. And oftentimes it's really just a person's like, yeah, like I'm excited. Let's do this. Or I can't schedule right now because I'm driving and I don't have my schedule in front of me, but like, yeah, I'm super bummed about this. This sounds perfect. Right. So it's, either one or the other kind of thing. So if they're like, yeah, let's go. I'm like, okay, let's get you scheduled. So at that time, I will actually pull up the Acuity scheduling link. So as if they were doing it themselves, I do it for them. Okay. And I pull up our link to our discovery session. And this is what it looks like. So I'm going to type in their name, their last name. I'm going to ask them what their phone number is, or if it's on the caller ID, I'll say, this is the number on the caller ID. Is that the number you want me to use? Oftentimes they say yes. And then I'll say, what email address would you like me to use for all of the prep work to go? You want to make sure you say it that way. You don't want them to get, you don't want them to give you their spam email account. Okay. And then just a few more details. These are all built into Acuity. Okay. So I understand I will receive prep work that must be completed and submitted 48 hours before my scheduled appointment. I have to check that box. I've given myself plenty of time. By scheduling, I agree to the terms and conditions of the Eureka session. So when I am on the phone with them, I will read these off to them and I'll say something like, there's just a few things I want to make sure you're aware of before I go onto the payment screen. And when I say that, what I've just done is I've let them know there's a payment coming. Like I'm going to ask them for payment information pretty soon. So I planted a seed of, before I go on to the payment screen, I wanted to make sure you're aware of a few things. You understand you're going to get prep work and it's due back to me 48 hours before your appointment. That way I can be fully prepared and give you the best advice possible. Do you understand? And they say, yes. I click the box. As the meeting gets closer, it's normal to feel nervous and maybe question or doubt coming in, but I do have a very strict cancellation policy, so I pretty much don't allow it. I know if you come in, you'll be so glad you did. So once you schedule this, you're stuck with me, okay? And I usually kind of crack a joke about it. I say it in kind of a funny way. It is my way of being firm and playful at the same time. And then I say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take you to the payment screen now. So you'll want to get your debit or credit card handy. And in Acuity, this is the screen that will come up. I actually come down here, pay with debit card or credit card. So you're not going to log into PayPal or Stripe, whatever you're syncing it with. There's a spot that says pay with card. And you're going to click on that. And it's going to take you to another screen where you can actually enter in their card information. So they'll just read it off to me over the phone. And then I always say this. All right, and so if I've done everything right on my end, and if I haven't fat fingered anything, this should go through just fine. And then I hit submit. And the reason I say that is because you're working with people who maybe are in a tight position financially. and they don't always know what's in their checking account or on their credit card or whatever when they call you. So I want to take ownership right away so that if that card declines, I am kind of giving them an out. Like, oh, I must have done something wrong, or I'm sure this was an error on my end or something like that. And I'll usually say something like, do you want me to try that again? Or is there another card you want to try or something? But essentially what I've done is I've minimized any embarrassment or humiliation. Okay. And then if it goes through, you'll get a confirmation that says your appointment's been scheduled, and I'll say, great, it looks like we're all set. In your inbox with the email address you gave me, you should have an email that has all of the prep work included right inside the email. So, please take a look at it. Make sure you can access it okay. Make sure there's no problems. Tomorrow, you'll probably hear from Sherry. She's just going to check in with you, make sure you're okay. Between now and then, or between now and, October 1st, whenever their session is, please don't be a stranger. We are here to help you. If ever you're just not sure if you should include something or not, reach out to us. If you're not sure where to find some of the information we're asking you, please let us know. We do this all day, and we want to make sure that we are here to help you through it. So don't feel as if you can't, reach out to us. And then I'll say, I'm really looking forward to helping you, create a plan for your debt, or devise a spending strategy that you're super excited about, or whatever. So try to be specific in that way. And then, do you have any more questions for me at this time? If they do, you listen and answer them. And then, okay, I'm wonderful. I'm just so excited to meet with you in a couple of weeks, Tanya, right? And then you hang up the phone, okay? So that is the quick audit. It's a 20-minute call, happens pretty quickly. Couple recommendations here. I'm going to get back to just some kind of tips here. Is you might want to, in the scheduling software, when you create your 20-minute appointment, we call ours the Q&A session. So it looks like question and answer, but it actually stands for quick audit, and nobody knows it. So you can call it a, what have I seen? I've seen some really good names for it too, and I can't remember. Jumpstart call, or something. You can call it anything you want. Don't call it quick audit. Nobody will know what that is. Okay, you can call it a Q&A session, which is what we call it. I'm totally drawing a blank right now on some of the really creative names that I've seen coaches call their 20-minute call. But when you create it, I highly recommend creating a buffer. So in Acuity, you can say this is a 20-minute call, but block off 10 minutes afterwards as well, which means it will only put it in a time where you actually have a 30-minute window. What the client sees is a 20-minute appointment. But on yours, you've given yourself a buffer, because if it goes over, or if you're in the middle of onboarding somebody and scheduling them and they've got some questions about the session, you do not want to be rushed at that moment. So I highly recommend creating a little bit of a buffer, and the client doesn't even need to see that part of it, okay? Never sell more than one step out. This is a really good philosophy to adopt overall in your business. So when we're talking with somebody while we're networking, you're going to say, I would love to just talk with you for 20 minutes if you're open for that. That's the quick audit. During the quick audit, you move them into the discovery session. During the discovery session, at the end of it, you might do the next steps consultation and then move them into a program. Does that make sense? You are never going to be in this quick audit. You will get the question a lot of so what happens after your Eureka session? So I meet with you and I do this session, then what? Well, we have a number of options, and it really just depends on where you're at once we've delivered your solutions to you. You might find that those solutions are really easy for you to do on your own and you don't need anything more. You might find that you want some intense follow-up and a lot of help, and we offer that as well. And we offer some things in between. So we will discuss those options after we meet. And that's what I say. I do not go into specifics on price, program design, anything during the quick audit. You only ever sell one step out. Otherwise, it's super overwhelming. Not only that, but we charge $597, $697 a month for our program. And at this stage, 99% of our clients don't think they can afford that, right? But during the Eureka session, what we do is we help them get on a plan, and we help them figure out if it's something they want, how they can afford our help. And it's just a better time to do it versus during a 20-minute call. That's just not the design of the quick audit, okay? Let's see. The conversation should be more about showing them how they can work with you and inviting them into that process, and not at all about trying to convince them that they need you, and not at all about actually helping them on the call, okay? Not everybody moves forward. So I think sometimes when I explain things, I think other coaches assume that we have like a 100% conversion or something at Physical Fitness, which is not true. So one of the things that I've begun adding to the academy is like our stats. So far from January till like August, I think, Jill has done 83 quick audit conversations, okay? 83, we track all these. And she's done 46 Eureka sessions. So that's about a 55% conversion, which I'm okay with that. The reason I'm okay with that is because I know there are some people we've done a quick audit for and we're like, we're not the best fit for you based on what you're saying. I do quick audits every once in a while if they can't get on Jill's calendar right away. You do want these to be somewhat, quick turnaround time. So you don't really want somebody to schedule a quick audit call with you like a month from now. Chances are something has happened and you want to be able to like capture the urgency of whatever is going on with them. So I will still do some of them as well. I just don't do them as often anymore. But there was this one lady that, and I don't remember the exact wording, but I just remember really quickly on the call being like, yeah, it's not something we can help with. And she said something along the lines of, I want to have a plan, but I don't want to have to like really put in any work. And I don't remember the exact wording, but it was essentially what she said. Like, I don't want to have to look at anything. I don't want to ever have to open my bank account. I don't want to have any like software that I have to like categorize my expenses or anything like that. Like, I just want it to be super easy and never have to look at it. And my philosophy just does not jive with that. I'm just like, I don't think you can have growth and experience change and have total awareness without putting in effort. Like, I don't know how. And if there is a way, by all means, somebody share it with me. It's just not my philosophy with money. Now, I don't want somebody to like spend countless hours a week on their stuff either. But I feel as if that was just us not jiving. And I was very honest about that. Say, I don't have any strategies or magic tricks on like how to make it so you can do that without putting in any effort or spending any time on it. I wish I did. If I did, I would share them with you right now. I don't. So I'm not really sure that the Eureka session can deliver what you want because I don't know how to deliver what you want. And that's what I said. Okay. And so because of that is the design of this session, is to filter those people out, filter out people who are not a good fit for you. Okay. And so you will never have 100% conversion because of that. So let's say they schedule their discovery session. Let me take a step back here. Just 1 second. I'm sorry. I want to really quickly, just give you an example of what happens from the client side now. Okay. So they're on the call with you. You just let them know that you can help them. And chances are they were like, wow, that was really easy. I just scheduled that session. It was pretty painless. And, I understood exactly what I needed to do. She led me through that process, right? Like, they're feeling pretty supported. Initially, they're going to be excited. And then if you ever study what happens with a person, any of us, right after a purchase, there's this high moment and then it completely takes a nosedive, our energy, our excitement about something. We start to get nervous. There's this moment of like, oh my God, what have I just done, right? They start to get scared. They start to think as the session gets closer about actually showing their information to somebody. And then as they start to think through doing that, they're like, oh my God, someone's actually gonna be looking at all of this. I hadn't thought that far out yet, right? It is really scary for some people to know that someone else is about to be combing through their numbers. And oftentimes a client has to fill out prep work and they have to look at their numbers in order to fill out the prep work. And sometimes they haven't done that in a really long time. And that by itself can be really scary. They can be like, oh my God, I don't want to look. So what happens is a whole bunch of negative thoughts can start to happen in their brain. Oh God, what have we done? Did I just throw away $495 or $500 or $200, whatever it is? I can't possibly do this. There's no way she can help us. We're bad with money and we're always going to be bad with money. Nothing can ever change that. This is not going to work for us. When they start to look at the prep work, I don't know how to answer any of these questions. I don't know where to find any of these answers. And they will find a way to work on anything else but their prep work. Everything else will become more urgent in their life, right? And it's for all of these reasons that we have a very strict cancellation policy on our Eureka session. And I'm going to encourage you to do the same thing. It is one of the best decisions I've ever made. We do get a little pushback on it. And yet when I explain why we have it, everyone's like, oh yeah, I could totally see myself doing that. Yeah, I'm glad you do it. So what I will say is, if when I'm, going over those disclaimers, I'll say, I want you to know we have a very strict cancellation policy. Once you schedule this session, we're going to hold you to it. We do not do refunds. You can't reschedule this. You're going to have to stick to this day and time. All right, is that cool with you? And if they say, oh, really? Wow, that sounds really strict. And I will say very lovingly, I want you to know that you will be really excited that you do this session. But it's also very normal that leading up to it, you're going to get super nervous. You're going to start to doubt whether or not you should do this or not. And I know that it's easy to back out the closer it gets, and I don't want you to. I want you to experience financial change, and I want to help you. And so once you schedule it, I'm going to hold you to it, because I know you'll be so glad if you do. And if you can just communicate that in a compassionate way, they're like, okay, I guess I got to do this then, right? And so you just want to make sure you're communicating that clear expectation. In Thinkific is a copy of our terms and conditions. So the way we have our terms and conditions set up, when we first started with Acuity, they didn't have an option to add your terms and conditions right to the appointment. They do now. So if you go to Acuity and you set it up, you're going to create your discovery session, and they can literally agree to the terms and conditions right when they schedule, okay? That wasn't a feature when I first did it. So our workaround was, it says, I agree to the terms and conditions, and that links to our website. And on our website is like this hidden page that you can't really get to unless you have the link, okay? And in it are the terms and conditions of our Eureka session. Feel free to duplicate these and put them in your Acuity, okay? So this is like what they're agreeing to. A couple of things about this. We promise to coach you with sound financial advice. Our sole purpose is in helping you, the client. We do not, nor will we ever, receive any kickbacks or financial perks from any other professionals, vendors, companies, or third-party products or services. That is my philosophy at Fiscal Fitness. It is our policy that if I recommend somebody, let's say Personal Capital, okay? You guys know Personal Capital. If you have somebody sign up for it, they get $20 and you get $20 or something like that. I don't even know what it is. My policy is that I never want a client to feel as if we have ulterior motives when we recommend something. So I want them to use that referral link because I want them to get their $20, but I will usually say, I'm going to get $20. What charity would you like me to give it to? So I will get the $20 and I'm going to do something with it. I don't feel as if you have to do this. When I first started as a financial coach and financial coaching was not a thing, it was my way of separating myself from financial advisors. And once I adapted it and it worked really well for me, I saw sort of like the wall come down with clients when I communicate this. When I share that this is my policy with them, it's almost like I just see them get a little lighter. And it has really worked for me in the sense of the level of trust that I get with clients, and the long-term relationships that I've been able to build have been so much more fruitful than some short-term $20 perk that I can get from referring them to something, okay? So under the Fiscal Fitness brand, we just do not accept anything like that. So if you're gonna copy this, I want you to consider, is that what you're gonna do? Or if you don't wanna do that, that's okay too. I think it's less of a big deal now, but if you're gonna, put that in there, just make sure you honor it, okay? We promise to honor your complete privacy. We do not share anything with anybody unless we get your specific and written permission first. And then here's some things that they promise, so you can go ahead and read through this. This down here is the standard waiver and release. I highly recommend you put it on most of your contracts. It is simply a way of them saying, you know, they're responsible for their choices. It is ultimately up to them what they choose to do and that kind of thing. So feel free to take that as well. This just looks a little funny because I just downloaded it from our website, but ignore the weird formatting on this document. Okay. The other reason that Sherry always calls the very next day, and I would recommend even before you have a Sherry, is either drop the client a note the next day through email, you know, send them a text message if you're going to use your phone, call and leave them a voicemail and say, hey, just wanted to check in. I know sometimes, you know, after someone schedules, they can start to feel a little nervous. Just wanted to check in with you. I'm super excited to have you be part of, you know, our process and our coaching and all of that. And I'm excited to help you. And, you know, they are going to be at a low. It's very, very normal. And the best thing you can do right there is love on them as best as possible. Okay. Okay. I wanted to share with you some of the behind the scenes things that happen here. After the Q&A call or at the end of it, and they've scheduled their Eureka session, so they scheduled a discovery session, they receive a confirmation email, and the confirmation email has the prep work included in the email, okay? And there is a copy of that email provided. Let's see, where is that? Right here. In Acuity, you can make this look however you want. So you can add pictures, you can, you know, explain your steps differently than the way I do. You know, I tend to try to, you know, make things playful. So I have, you know, like your Eureka session's been scheduled. Wahoo, let's get this party started. Like, you don't need to include that if that's cheesy to you and you don't like that kind of playfulness. Don't add that, but add your own personality, please. Add your own colors, your own fonts, all that kind of stuff, okay? So there is a copy of the confirmation email that goes out. It talks about, you know, the meeting format. In the meantime, here's what they can expect. Links to the website and the Facebook page in case they want to go check those out. A list of anything else that I want them to provide to me. So they get that email. Sorry. They also get a call from Sherry welcoming them. And also just kind of saying, hey, have you had a chance to pull up the email yet? Were you able to access everything okay? That kind of thing. And again, Sherry is you for a little while, and that's okay. It was me for a long time too. They receive a reminder email a few days before the Eureka session. We have ours scheduled to go out like 3 days before the session because their prep work is due back 2 days before the session. So it's like a reminder of their prep work too. And you get a copy of that email as well, which is right here. So this is a reminder that and the way Acuity works is this is going to type in like your Eureka session with Coach Kelsa or Coach Jill is on Thursday at blah, blah, blah time. Your prep work is due soon. Here's your meeting format again. Request to cancel or reschedule. We put that reminder in there because it's now 3 days before. They're really freaking out at this point. Okay, they're getting nervous. They're really starting to get nervous. So you want them to remember, tough cookie, right? Okay. Client completes their prep work and sends it in to us. Now, at Fiscal Fitness, Sherry actually does our initial review, which is wonderful. But if she didn't, we would do it. So I would review everything and I would send them a list of clarifying questions. This is really important, you guys. It is normal at first. You're going to spend way too long reviewing their prep work. I can promise you right now, because you're going to be nervous. You're going to want to make sure you deliver like the most value possible, and that you understand like the inner workings of all their finances just as good as you understand your own. But now I can pretty much get through a client's prep work really quickly. And you'll get faster at it too. And as your confidence grows, you'll just know that like you can wing some things. Okay. But it's really important to send some questions. And the reason for that is because you want them to know that, wow, like you are reviewing it ahead of time, right? So Sherry actually sends a list of follow-up questions, anything that might be missing. So if they didn't include their interest rates on their debts, she's going to say, hey, I really need this. Is there any chance you can get it to me today? I've done my first review, but Coach Jill still needs to do her review or something like that. And if it's you want to say like, I really want to devise this debt payoff strategy for you. And this is a crucial piece of it. So I need it before we meet, kind of thing. The discovery session is completed. So you actually hold the session. They're going to receive some follow-up deliverables. So there might be some things that you send that are custom to them. And then there are some things that are just everybody gets the same things. We'll go over them in just a little bit. They're going to receive a feedback email request. So asking either for a review on Facebook or a private feedback form that you can create using like a Google form if you want. I always do both because a lot of clients don't mind sharing on Facebook or Google or something like a true review, but other people just want to keep it private. And so I let them know, here's where we would love your reviews. If you would prefer to keep your review private, here's a link to do so. And it's just a Google form. And then we do a next step consultation a few weeks after the session, which we will talk about that next week or in 2 weeks from now. So that's kind of the behind the scenes that's happening. Okay. Before we dive into the discovery session, I want to go over a few things about it. I feel like I'm missing something. Let me just see. Did I hit the right? Sorry. Okay. There is a little bit of flurry of activity, right, that's happening. You can see that there's prep work, there's some emails back and forth, that kind of thing. But then the discovery session happens. And the way I want you guys to think about your discovery session, it is the first opportunity that you have to really wow your client and to like deliver a ton of value to them. So I am going to educate them. I'm going to paint a very clear picture for them of what I'm seeing about their financial situation. And I don't want you guys to downplay the value of having an expert opinion about what you're seeing or their situation. I feel like this is so valuable to a client, and oftentimes as the coach or the expert, we don't realize how much weight they're putting behind our opinion, okay? Let me pull up the Eureka session flow here. So I'm going to talk with them about their goals. I'm going to discuss any changes that I think are needed, steps necessary to sort of bridging the gap between where they're at now and where they want to be. And in order to help do that, I need prep work from them. And I need to gather a bunch of information ahead of time. I could use the 2 hours to do that, and yet I feel like that would be super lame. So if they're like sitting there and I'm like, okay, now pull up your bank account. Let's go through it together and let's see how much you spent on eating out. And what's your mortgage? Oh, you don't know. Well, let's log into your bill pay. Or like, to me, that sounds dreadful. I do not want to do that. And it's just not as effective either. I can't tell you how many clients over the years have said to me how valuable it was for them to complete the step of their prep work. So please, you might want to do that for somebody as a way of adding value. And I promise you, that is not where your expertise lies. It's not. Let them take that step themselves because it is a really good first step for them to take. Again, if later down the road, if early on you're doing a bunch of stuff for them and then later down the road they have to start showing up in order to experience change, it's going to be a much harder transition, okay? So I'm going to ask for a bunch of prep work, and then I'm probably even going to give them a homework after the session as well. So I want to go through an example of what a Eureka session looks like, the flow of it first. And then we're going to dive into the prep work and then the post-delivery options. You'll see that this looks very similar to the quick audit. So we're going to build some rapport and set expectations. I usually will tell my why story in here. So I'll tell a little bit about myself, very quick version, because it's their 2 hours. I want to make sure it's incredibly valuable. But I also know that when we first start, they're so nervous. If you can talk for just a couple of minutes, they start to calm down a little bit, and you'll actually see it physically happen. Their nonverbal, communication, they'll start to get a little bit more relaxed. And you telling your why story is a really great way for them to do that. So set expectations. We've got 2 hours. Here's what I want us to accomplish today. We're going to cover this, this, and this. One of the questions you will see that I ask on the prep work is, what do you hope to gain from this session? So during expectations, I make sure I point that out. I know you are hoping that we cover X. We will definitely do that. And I'm also hoping that we can talk about this other thing too that I'm noticing that I want to make sure we tackle. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we discuss today? You just want to really make sure you set that clear expectation. The nice thing about doing that, asking in the prep work, what do you hope to gain from the session? I promise you that your expectation of what you need to deliver is way up here. You are going to put so much pressure on yourself, and you're going to read what the client wants. And it's something that's so simple and it's so honest. And you're like, oh my God, that's all they want. I can do that. Right. And if anything, you're like, oh, I can do that plus some. I'm going to totally wow them. Right. It is oftentimes what the client wants is just to feel better, right, around their money. And it's just crazy to me how simple it can be in nature. And yet we want to overcomplicate things and put a lot of pressure on ourselves. So you want to say, this is what you're hoping to get. Is there anything else, right? Why now is you're going to reiterate probably based off their feedback. So you probably don't want to spend a ton of time on this during this session because you already talked about it on the quick audit. But it's one of those things where you'll say something like, I know that you've been experiencing this for a while. We're going to be able to make some changes today that, get you moving forward. And I'm really looking forward to that. I know this has been, bothering you for a while. And, this is hopefully the last day you're feeling that way kind of thing. Okay. So you're just going to kind of touch on why they came to you now. You're going to create desire. So you want to talk from a magic wand standpoint, and some of this stuff we do in the prep work, tell me what your goals are. Tell me what you would love to say about your money. Tell me what you haven't told anybody before, right? About what your hopes and dreams are and that kind of thing. So, just get them thinking a bigger picture. And then you want to add value, set a foundation. This is the educational component. So we give you a copy of a Eureka session in the videos in the supplemental section of this module. And so you'll see this is where we kind of go over how we help people structure their budget. And there's an educational piece to it, okay? The impact is where we attach whatever this lesson is to their situation. Please know that this value section is different for every client, okay? No 2 discovery sessions are the same. No 2 Eureka sessions are the same. They're all different because what I need to deliver for one person is different than I need to deliver to somebody else. So in the copy of the Eureka session you get, we teach this person something. And then we take what we taught them and we apply it to their scenario so we can talk about the impact of that for them. And those 2 things always happen. They just might happen on a different topic. So for example, if you have somebody that their only worry is debt, that's all they care about, you might teach them about the different strategies for getting out of debt. There's the debt snowball, there's the avalanche, here's I call it the emotional baggage one, that kind of thing, which I go over all these in the financial principles section of the course. But, and you might be talking about here's which one is best. And based on these things I just taught you, if you chose option 1, this is when you would get out of debt. If you chose option 2, this is when you could get out of debt. And that's the impact of that lesson on their situation. Okay. This is where you take information that's readily available, financial knowledge, and you teach them financial knowledge But where coaching comes into play is making that knowledge relevant to the client, okay? Anybody can read a blog post, and people do all the time. My clients are like, I've read everything, I've tried everything, and I can't get it to work. Because where I come in is I take what they already know and I say, let's apply it. Let's make it relevant. Let's figure out the impact of this lesson on your life, okay? And this is where you're really gonna help them a ton, okay? But these two things are different for everybody. And then reality. So it's like, here's where you're at right now. Based on what we just talked about, you wanna be here and you could get out of debt by this date. And so you've got 4 years. It's going to take you 4 years to get out of debt. Tell me how that reality feels for you, right? Tell me, is that exciting to you, or does that feel like a really long road? Are you excited that you have a plan, or are you disappointed by what we're seeing right now? Like, if you just painted a very clear picture of exactly what they have going on, let them tell you what they think of that picture now, okay? And that's the reality. And then you want to talk during this section too about some of the changes they can probably make to make the reality better, okay? Oftentimes though, that's as far as you can get, and that's where the offer and onboarding into more coaching comes into play. So you can say, you know what, we have created a plan for you to get out of debt. We know we picked the order that you're going to pay off your debts. We got you organized with a spending plan. We know exactly which month each one should, will get paid off. And I know it's not exactly what you want to see, but we've been able to accomplish a lot in 2 hours. Imagine what we could accomplish if we worked together for 4 more months, right? And that's where the offer comes in for future coaching. Now, we are going to cover sales and the entire process for setting up the conversation to invite them into a long-term coaching package with you. We're just not going to do it tonight, okay? The reason for that, just so you can kind of know what to expect coming down the pipeline. In 2 weeks, we're going to help you build what does your program look like. Is it 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 7 months, whatever the case may be? And what value does a client get from working with you for that long? How can you understand a sales conversation if you don't understand the value that you deliver first, right? So we want to help you create the value first that you're going to deliver, and then the sales conversation is that much easier to tackle because we're just going to be able to plug in all that value into the sales conversation, okay? So that's kind of why, even though from the flow of how you would do it in business is different, the way we want to teach it to you is where it's way more relevant because it's using your true information, not mine. So I can tell you why my program is valuable to a client, but that doesn't do you any good when we need you to have understanding on why your program is valuable, okay? And then sometimes we onboard them, or oftentimes the onboarding and the offer is actually just to get them scheduled for the next steps consultation. So 3 weeks from now, I want you to work on some of these steps we talked about. I want you to digest everything you just learned. I know it's a bit overwhelming. It's been 2 hours. We learned a lot. We talked about a lot of different things. I want you to, digest some of this information, make some of these changes, see how they, fit, and then we'll talk again in 3 weeks and see how you're doing. Oftentimes at that time, you'll see clients like doing amazing. They've made all the changes. They're on cloud 9 and they are out raving about you because they made that much change in just a 2-hour session with you, right? And that's beautiful. And other times you'll meet with them 3 weeks later and they're like, I haven't done anything. I haven't looked at it. I haven't had time. The kids have been distracting me. I've been busy at work. And that is actually the reason why they need you for long-term coaching, right? Are all of those reasons they just told you. So it's a really beautiful process where you're just leading them into the next step based on what they're truly showing you that they need, okay? So we're going to help you design your discovery session these next 2 weeks, which is this worksheet right here. Ultimately, what you will find is it's all centered around that chief problem that you hopefully honed in on last lesson, okay? And some of the problems are connected. It just depends on how they say it. So spending and debt are oftentimes connected. So they might say like their biggest problem is debt, but you probably need a budget and debt payoff strategies all at the same time kind of thing. So you really want to go back to lesson 1 and ask yourself, like, what are those chief problems that I want to help a client solve? And I will say, you might want to help people. I know some of you said like retirement and that sort of thing, but they were coming to you for something else. What we are designing is your very first session with somebody. So you can help somebody with retirement like all day long after they've worked with you for a while. Maybe that's like what your program design is all about. But when they first come to you for a discovery session, like, what is their initial problem, right? That's what your discovery session is going to deliver on, okay? So what are those? How much time do you need to solve this problem? And this is a tough question to answer because it just takes practice, right? And this is why sometimes I, recommend to a coach, like, find someone you can help, like sit down with your cousin and say, oh, you have student loan debt? Hey, can we sit down and just kind of talk about it for a little while and see, God, did those 2 hours go by really fast, or was it 30 minutes and you ran out of stuff to talk about, right? So it'll just kind of give you an idea. Chances are it's going to take you longer at first because you're going to talk more because you don't know how much is relevant to the client and what's not necessarily relevant. Coaches tend to talk more when they're starting out than later, unless you're me and you just talk all the time. Okay, what do you need from the client ahead of time in order to help them solve this problem? Some things that are pretty basic, or you probably want to know their contact details. How are they currently managing money? Maybe you want to know that, right? Some people do, some people don't. There's a copy of I'm sorry that I'm skipping around so much. Yes, there's a copy of we send out 2 things, a questionnaire and a financial worksheet. By all means, you do not need to ask all the same questions we ask. If you are helping people around retirement, you might want to help them calculate net worth. Like maybe that's part of it. You might want to know investment balances and 401k totals. Like, I don't need to know any of that because the people who come to us for their initial discovery session, it's not even on their radar yet. Okay. So we are really helping people with like spending and debt for their very first session. And so contact information, spouse information if they have it. Section 2 is let's talk money. You don't have to do different sections if you don't want to. So describe how you manage money currently. No system, everything set up on auto pay. Don't pay attention, track everything. I use a spreadsheet. I use a credit card for everything. No right or wrong answer here. The more details you can provide, the better. I just like to know, like, how are you currently doing things? I don't want to suggest something that's like totally opposite from what they've been doing without a lot of education around it, right? If they're already doing it a certain way, then it's easy. I don't have to dive into a long explanation. Who do you bank with? How many checking accounts do you have? We ask that question because a lot of people, when they come to us, have like 2 or 3 checking accounts, but they have no idea why. That's just an observation I had after many, many meetings and decided I should probably just ask this right away. I can't believe how many people say 3+. And I'll say, what's the purpose of each one? They'll be like, I don't know. So they'll literally have money in one account and overdraft the other. And so it's a pretty quick strategy where I'm like, okay, so which 2 are we closing out of the 3 that you have, kind of thing. So if you said more than one checking account, what is the purpose of each account? If you tried budgeting before, please describe what your budgeting approach looked like. How confident are you with what you're doing with your money? How stressed are you in regard to money? What do you think? Where do you think you stand financially right now? That question I added probably after 2 years of doing Eureka sessions. And the reason I added it was I found myself, if I was looking at their financial worksheet and they're, negative $1,000 a month, I found myself like losing sleep. Like, oh my God, I have to like share with these people that they're in a really tough spot. And I don't know if they know it. And am I going to be the one to like tell them this for the very first time? And it was just something that really worried me endlessly. So I decided to just ask, where do you think you stand? And it was so helpful because oftentimes the person's like, oh, I totally overspend. We're going into debt. We're putting this stuff on credit card every month. And yeah, like we're totally in over our head. And if I'm looking at their financial worksheet, I'm like, wow, they're overspending. and they're totally aware of it, I don't have to like worry that I'm the messenger of that, right? It has just helped tremendously. Also, if they're like, I think we're doing great, we're doing everything right, we just want a second opinion, but they're not, then that helps me right away that, you know, maybe the person I'm working with is not the most self-aware, right? So again, this question, super insightful. I really recommend that you include it in your questionnaire. How would you react if during your Eureka session I told you that you're overspending compared to your income and that lifestyle changes need to be made? And how would you react if during your session I told you that there's plenty of money to accomplish all your goals, but it requires changes to your money management system, behaviors, and mindset? I asked this question because I want to know, how do they handle feedback? There are some people that are like, they answer this question, they're like, oh, I'm fully expecting you to tell me that it's fine. And other people are like, I really hope that's not what you say. I'm so nervous that you're going to tell me that. And that tells me as a coach, I need to be careful with my delivery, that person, I probably need to be softer in my approach on how I explain that to them, because they're worried that I'm going to like just smack them down, right? And that's not what we want to do. And other people are like, I hope you're super candid and don't sugarcoat things. And I'm like, okay, good to know that they don't appreciate sugarcoating. So that question again is pretty insightful. You could also just ask the question, how do you handle feedback? Right? It's also just a very straightforward way of asking it. So if they have a significant other, I want their significant other's answers different. So how stressed are you in regard to money? It's very normal that one spouse is like a 5 out of 5 stressed, and the other one's like, I don't know, I think things are fine, I'm a 1, right? And so I want to have that awareness going in. What do you hope to gain from the session? When you get inspired by something, what does it take for you to implement it? Are you the type of person who implements ideas immediately, takes lots of notes, but then sticks them in a drawer and thinks about things for a few weeks before making changes? This is really helpful because if they take lots of notes and then stick them in a drawer, and I'm giving them a lot of steps and they're taking notes and they seem super engaged, when we talk about changes that are coming down the pipeline, oftentimes the changes that a person are making during the discovery session are just the first step in their journey around money. And so when we talk about that, I can say, you indicated that you tend to take a lot of notes and then stick them in a drawer. Is that going to happen with the changes we just talked about? Right? And allow them to let you know that. Let them, you know, you want that feedback from them, because if they say, yeah, that's probably going to happen, say, it doesn't have to happen. I can help you, right? Like we can meet so consistently that we do things together, and then I help hold you accountable so that I keep this present in your life, because you told me you wanted blank, right? And down here, what is your primary financial goal? You told me you want X. Sticking these notes in a drawer is not going to get you X. So just something to think about in the next few weeks, right? This question, so the Eureka session is just the beginning. It's meant to get the ball rolling in the right direction. Would you like information on how coaching can continue after the session? I asked that question, one, to plant the seed of there is more if you're interested in hearing about it, so they're aware of it. And then two, if they say no, I respect that. So, and it's happened so many times where they've said no, and well, not too many people say no, but the ones who do say no, then they do the session and they're like, so tell me, how can we work together? And I say, are you okay with us talking about it? Because you indicated you didn't want to talk about it, and I want to make sure I respect that. And they're like, but that was what I thought. I just didn't want a sales pitch, but no, like I really want to talk with you about how we can work together continuously. So it's like, it's kind of funny they do it because they're skeptical, and sometimes rightfully so, right? And it's good that they then are like opening up and saying, no, I really want to hear now. So that is one of them. In Thinkific are the financial worksheets that I send. You will see that there's nothing that fancy about them. It's a financial worksheet, it's a budgeting form, and we have people fill it out based on what they think. And it's super interesting to see how many clients fill it out, and they're supposed to be positive $3,000 a month, and they have no idea where that $3,000 a month is going, and we talk about that, right? So it's really interesting to have them fill it out. I will say that when it comes to you designing your prep work, if you are a lover of Mint.com or YNAB or anything, personal capital, all that, and you want to have that be part of your process, where maybe one of their steps is they have to go create a personal capital account and have it sync and download their transactions or whatever, by all means, go ahead. I'm an Excel geek, so I like Excel. You don't have to use Excel for your prep work, okay? So you want to ask yourself, like, what kinds of things do I need to know, and what kinds of things would I like to know? So, do I need to know spending amounts for things? Do I need to know debt balances? Do I need to know interest rates? Do I need to know net worth? What will the client gain from this session? What are the results or the benefits to the client from this session? So, and again, some of these things are like an expert outside opinion. Like, that is a total benefit to the client and should not be downplayed. They're going to receive some action steps on what they can, need to do. They're going to receive some strategies. They're going to receive education around a particular topic that they're interested in. They're going to receive action steps and a game plan and some takeaways and all of that, okay? How will the client feel after the session compared to beforehand? It is super normal for us that our clients are like on cloud nine at the end of the Eureka session. They are so excited. They can see things clearly for the first time in a long time. Depending on the work you do, there are times where like it could be a hard session. Like, it could be challenging. Maybe you're drumming up some old mindsets or money blocks or something like that. And you want to know going in, what is the emotional impact of the kind of work you're going to be doing with somebody? If it is a really hard thing, then I want to talk with you about how can we add something to the end so that it doesn't end in a super painful way for them, okay? Either like they get a call with you 2 days later or something, we want to design something in your process to make it so that you're not leaving them in that depressed state, okay? So if that is the case, please in the Facebook group, reach out to me. If that's like part of your journey with a client, it's going to be some really tough work at the beginning. How would you quantify the value of those benefits to the client? So what are some direct financial savings they will incur from the session? Based on this, what's a reasonable price to charge for the session? And then some things to consider. Is this competitive or possible in your market? What's your hourly rate at this price? We consider the Eureka session a loss leader. What I mean by that is we don't make money off the Eureka session. So if I consider the amount of time that Sherry will spend, the amount of time the coach spends prepping, the 2-hour session, and then the next steps consultation, which is kind of part of it, even though we don't charge for that or anything. It's a lot of work. It is. And yet I'm just not sure that we could charge, $1,500 for all of that work and still have people schedule with us. Like, it's just such a leap of faith to even pay somebody, for that initial guidance. And so you have to be careful with that. I feel confident in the amount that we charge, which is $497, but I wanted to share with you the journey of that. So when I first started, this is the pricing thing. Let me get to my notes here. I started, and it was a 90-minute session, and I charged $58 for it. $58. Don't charge $58 for your session, please. Don't even charge the next price that I charged, which was $83. So I increased it by $25 because for every Eureka session that was booked, I gave $25 to charity. So I didn't even make any more money. I just increased the price. And then I did a big jump, and then I went to like $225, I think. And now I charge $497. And I do not doubt the value of what we offer in that session. I believe, like, for what we deliver, we could probably charge $1,500. I just think it's harder to communicate the value to somebody who has no idea what financial coaching is and hasn't experienced it yet. So we consider it a loss leader, which means we might not make money. If all we did all day long was Eureka sessions, we would go broke. But if we can really wow them and impress them and add a ton of value right then and move them into a long-term coaching program, the long-term coaching is obviously at a much better price for us, and we get to build a long-term relationship with them. So it's better. So I think when it comes to pricing, it's normal to price based off of your confidence level when you're first starting. So it's probably nerve-wracking, the idea of charging $500 for a session when you haven't done one before. So my recommendation is to set a price that feels fair to you and look at some of those factors. You've got to look at what can your ideal client absorb and what can your area absorb. So if you are working with people in crisis mode on the brink of bankruptcy or something like that, you've got to take that into consideration. If your ideal client is single mothers that maybe don't get child support or something like that, it might be that they don't have a lot of extra cash flow, and that's something you need to consider. If your area doesn't believe in personal development, we actually have a coach that's experiencing this right now. Like nobody kind of in her city does training of any kind. Like they don't go to conferences, they don't do personal development, they don't take online courses, they don't even hire a personal trainer, right? They're just not big into it. And she wants to be local in-person meetings. And so she's really having this disconnect that they don't understand the value of coaching. So there's a big education that she's got to do around that. So just something to think about. I believe most of you will undercharge to start. And like I said, I think it has more to do with confidence than anything. And so I can understand that. I think it's okay. What I recommend you do is just set a price and start. And then set a date on your calendar for like 6 months later to reevaluate the price. What I don't want you to do is get stuck at that low price and never change it. So the idea is like set a reminder on your calendar for 6 months later. I'm gonna reevaluate this and see, do I feel comfortable increasing it? And then likely you'll have incremental increases over time, which is what I did. Okay. The loss leader example is kind of like Costco with their rotisserie chickens. So their rotisserie chickens, you can buy a rotisserie chicken for like $4.97 or something, and they're so tasty and good. But yet they're in the way back of the store, and they're a loss leader. They actually lose money on those rotisserie chickens. There's articles done about it in Forbes and stuff, Wall Street Journal, whatever. They lose money, but they know by putting it in the back of the store, you have to walk all the way to the back, and you're likely to buy something else when you walk past it. And they make money on the other things. So the rotisserie chickens get you into the store, right? So your discovery session might be a little bit of that, and especially at first when you're setting a price that's lower as your confidence grows, okay? So just something to think about when it comes to the pricing. Let's see. Homework. Let's dive into your homework. Like I said, it's a lot, y'all. It is a lot. Really quickly, so you're going to think about some deliverables. We have, they get a copy, and if you watch the Eureka session example, like their financial worksheet, we're typing in their financial worksheet in the session. So, see if you can lower this bill, or change the date of this, or reevaluate this interest rate, or, we're writing notes in there. So their action steps are getting typed up while we're talking, and then they get a copy of that back. So that's the thing that they get that's like very specific to them. And in it, we type kind of on the right-hand side, we type like your goals and your milestones and your dates, and like all the stuff that we talk about gets typed into their financial Excel worksheet while we're doing the session, and then they get that back. So that is their biggest deliverable. And then we also have kind of a drip sequence that is all automatic, so every client gets the exact same. And those are all provided as well in Thinkific. Please don't copy them word for word. Again, I just don't know that would serve you well. They kind of are my own personality. I want you to embrace your own personality and think about like what it is that you would talk about. So if you believe that 99% of your clients, you're going to talk to them about debt, and you're going to talk with them about the different debt payoff strategies, include that in your email recap. That way it's just something every client gets, right? And don't worry about if 1 out of 20 clients you don't talk about debt, but your email includes that. It's not a big deal. I promise you it's not worth stressing out over. So we do a recap email, and then we do a I'll just show you these really quickly. This is email number 2, which is like checking in to see how you're doing. Okay. We also share with them some studies that we've done on our clients. You might not have these yet, but you could insert some testimonials here. If you have testimonials from clients, even if it's someone who didn't pay you, but you helped them, you can include those in here as well. So you can see we just have that. So it's like a testimonial email. And then email number 3 is, at this point, you should have done certain things. If you are dragging your feet, struggling to make changes, feeling confused or uncertain, don't just settle for, being okay with your money. It can be better. It can be amazing. So this is kind of like like it goes out about a month later and is like, if you have not made any changes after your meeting, like, please don't settle for that kind of thing. Okay. Let's see. They also get a feedback email, which I can add to this. I thought it was in here, but I don't see it. So I will add that. So asking them to leave us feedback on their Eureka session. So we do that, and let's dive into your homework. You guys can totally, oops, wrong spot. Sorry, guys. Don't worry so much about the automation. So like we have an automation set up where it automatically sends those emails. You can just send an email, like literally put it in a Word document and then copy and paste it into an email and send it manually for right now. Your goal for right now is not to worry about the tech side of this. It's to get the concepts laid out. Okay. Hey, where's my action list here? Oh, that was weird. So first impressions, so create a business name if you didn't last week, buy the domain for it if you haven't yet, set up your Google Suites and your Google Voice if you desire to do that, create a logo or pay to have one done. You can do something on Fiverr if you want. We've had great luck with Fiverr. We just gave out a bunch of buttons at FinCon last week that say Financial Coach Academy and Financial Coach on them, and we had them designed on Fiverr for like $20 or something. So print your business cards using the resources that are provided, set up your email signature and your voicemail greeting. The quick audit process, so get that set up. So there is a separate video under supplemental videos about Acuity. So if you're going to use Acuity, there's a video of me going behind the scenes in our Acuity showing where we've put things and how to get it all set up. So you are going to want to set your hours and availability in there. It's okay if you're guessing for right now. You might not be sending this out to anybody in the next couple of weeks. So don't worry about it being perfect. You can change it later. But the idea is just to get your account set up and stuff. Go ahead and create your appointment for the 20-minute quick audit. Q&A session, jumpstart session, call with your coach, whatever it is that you want to call it. So give it a title, email confirmation, set up the reminder email, all of that. And again, the Acuity tutorial shows you how to do all this. Create a PayPal or Stripe account, which will sync with your Acuity if you're going to start charging for it. This is definitely a step you could do later. So if you are like, well, I'm not going to charge anybody first, I'm going to do some beta clients, then don't worry about syncing the payment amount. You can do that step later. Practice the quick audit script with your super buddies. So one of you is Tanya, you can be another name if you want, and one of you is the coach, and you just take turns back and forth and try to play in when you are the client. Just have fun with this, you guys, and try to think about what your super buddy's ideal client might say and embrace that. Try to just embody what their person would say and bring that to the table, and do it a couple of different times. And coach, know that it's going to sound clunky at first. It's going to sound weird. It's going to be awkward, and that is okay. That's why we're practicing with super buddies, okay? Have your super buddy or anybody in the group, if you've got your quick audit appointment type set up and you want to provide the link in the group, we can click on it and we can actually schedule it with you just to see, like, what's the email confirmation look like? Was this easy? Was there anything weird about it? Stuff like that. We can, in other words, we can just test it right along with you, okay? Design your discovery session specifically on the client side of things. So think through the main problem that your client faces. Think through what the flow of that will look like for you. Using that framework handout, fill in the blanks essentially on your session. Create your questionnaire, and you can use Jotform. Jotform is what we use. There is a free version of Jotform. And there is a tutorial in there on how to use JotForm. Another free option is Google Forms, which is just as cool too. So you can totally just create your questionnaire using Google Forms if you want. Create your worksheet. And again, your worksheet can look totally different. And it might not even be an Excel worksheet if you don't want it to be. It can be anything. You can give them steps to set up Mint.com or something like that if you'd rather do it that way. If you are helping small business owners, maybe you ask them for a copy of their profit and loss statement, or have them fill out a profit and loss statement if they don't have one, right? Something along those lines. Actually design the back office side of your discovery session. So you're going to create that in Acuity. Your email confirmation, you want to make sure that that's all created so that it includes your prep work. Create the reminder email in Acuity, and then create your agreement of understanding, which are those terms and conditions. And again, there's a spot right in Acuity for that. When you watch the training video for Acuity, it doesn't go over the terms and conditions because it didn't exist at the time. And we still do not have it set up that way because our way works just fine. It's already done. We don't need to change it just because there's some new feature. So, but it's easy to find. You'll see right in there where there's terms and conditions. Okay. And if you need help with it, just let us know. One thing that I would like to ask is that you do a lot of the work on your discovery session before you watch the video of the Eureka session that we provide. I think it's really important for you to have some awareness and for you to think through how you want to do it for you before you see an example of somebody else's. I think it can just serve as a distraction if we're not careful. And you might be like, well, she did it that way. Should I do it that way too? And it could actually give you tunnel vision and make you be a little closed-minded. And I don't want that for you. I want it to be there as an example so you can kind of see that there's an introduction part of it and how we wrap up and close and like that kind of thing. But I don't want you to feel as if that is the only way to do a session. And especially because that is not how all of our Eureka sessions even go. Okay. Post all of the things that you're working on in the Facebook group. Get feedback on it. We can help you. There is also one other video that I want, or thing in here that I wanted to make sure I showed you. If you are going to use Google Sheets or Excel for like a worksheet and you're trying to figure out how to add that into your Acuity confirmation email, it is probably the question we are asked most often is how do you link to an Excel document? And how do you link to an Excel or a Google Sheet when you don't want them actually updating the template file, right? You want them to make a copy of it and insert all their numbers because another client's going to get that template very soon if you're scheduling a bunch of Eureka sessions, right? So please, please, please read through this. Adding your Excel or Google Sheet to the Acuity email confirmation. This tells you exactly how to do it. If you need help, please ask, in the group after you've read through this. But it's probably the question we get most often, which is why we added this to Thinkific. Okay, some very specific instructions there. Okay, so that is your homework. Like I said, there's a big vision, but there's a lot of details there. So please ask for help when you are working through it. And just a reminder, messy action at its finest these next 2 weeks. There are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure.